Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher, the golden couple that Hollywood once crowned as proof that love could conquer age, fame, and scandal. But behind the red carpet smiles and the carefully curated image lay a truth neither was ready to face. When their marriage fell apart, it wasn't just another celebrity breakup, it was a slow unraveling of trust, betrayal, and heartbreak that left scars both private and public. For years, Demi stayed silent. The tabloids feasted on speculation, whispers of infidelity, distance, and the strain of a 15-year age gap. But when she finally spoke, her words were not about revenge. They were about survival, about what it costs to love someone who is still learning to love themselves. And in her honesty, she revealed something the world had never truly understood about their marriage. That behind the glamour was a woman fighting to hold on to herself while everything around her slipped away. When Demi Moore first met Ashton Kutcher in 2003, no one could have predicted how completely their love would capture and divide Hollywood. She was 40, seasoned by fame, motherhood, and heartbreak after her divorce from Bruce Willis. He was 25, riding high on his new fame. That 70s show, the embodiment of youth and confidence in a business obsessed with both. Their connection was immediate, electric, playful, and impossibly photogenic. For Demi, it felt like renewal. For Ashton, it was an awakening. Together they defied every expectation of what a Hollywood couple should look like. The world took notice. The headlines called it the love story that defied the rules. Others called it a publicity stunt. But for a while, none of that seemed to matter. They appeared inseparable, meditating together, attending Kabbalah services, and speaking openly about spirituality and emotional connection. In 2005, they married in a quiet ceremony at their Beverly Hills home, surrounded by close friends, including Bruce Willis, a rare sign of peace between past and present. Their love, at least on the surface, seemed like a bridge between generations and worlds. The public fascination was relentless. Demi and Ashton were among the first celebrity couples to embrace social media, sharing snapshots of domestic bliss that blurred the line between intimacy and performance. Fans saw them laughing, traveling, hosting dinner parties, their romance unfolding in real time, one tweet at a time. For millions, they symbolized a modern fairy tale, proof that age, experience, and vulnerability could coexist with youth, curiosity, and passion. Yet behind the glowing posts and magazine covers, there were cracks, subtle, invisible to outsiders but growing. Those close to them spoke of differences that were hard to reconcile. Demi, a mother of 3, was grounded in family and reflection. Ashton, still finding his place in fame, was drawn to spontaneity and a social world she had already outgrown. Their 15-year age gap, once a symbol of confidence and defiance, slowly became a quiet weight neither could ignore. Still, they fought to make it work. Demi supported Ashton's every ambition. His transition from sitcom star to tech investor, his production ventures, his image as a modern innovator, and he in turn stood proudly by her side as she re-emerged in film. Celebrated for her strength and ageless beauty, they became each other's biggest advocates, shielding their private life from gossip with smiles that often concealed exhaustion. By 2009, whispers began to circulate. Friends noticed the distance, the absence of shared appearances, the subtle shift in energy when they did appear together. Ashton's growing nightlife habits clashed with Demi's quieter routines. Rumors of infidelity surfaced, first denied, then ignored. Hollywood, always hungry for the next scandal, began to ask the question that hung unspoken: could this perfect match survive the realities of who they truly were? For Demi, the questions were heavier. Having rebuilt her life after past heartbreaks, she now faced an emotional uncertainty she hadn't prepared for. The woman who once seemed untouchable was now caught in the very vulnerability she had spent years learning to master. For Ashton, the growing fame, the attention, and the constant scrutiny became suffocating. What had once felt like love began to feel like a spotlight, too bright, too revealing. And yet, even as cracks deepened, they continued to project unity. To the world they were still the beautiful contradiction, the mature icon, and the boyish star who made her laugh. But behind the cameras, their connection was shifting from passion to tension, from devotion to doubt. The same curiosity that had once made the world fall in love with them was now turning into suspicion. It would take only one night, one mistake, for everything to unravel. The night the story broke, everything changed. It was supposed to be a quiet evening, their 6th wedding anniversary, but instead it became the night that would define the end of Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher's marriage. In 2011, the tabloids exploded with headlines. Ashton Kutcher had reportedly cheated with a 22-year-old woman in San Diego. The revelation wasn't just a rumor. It came with names, photos, and a timeline that made denial impossible. For Demi, it wasn't only betrayal. It was humiliation, played out on a stage she had never auditioned for. The images were everywhere. The press feasted on the story with merciless precision, replaying their public displays of affection, now reframed as irony. The same magazines that once called them Hollywood's most unlikely love story now used words like broken, betrayed, and crumbling. Demi, who had spent years reinventing herself as more than a movie star, as a woman of strength and substance, suddenly became the symbol of heartbreak. The whispers about her age, her fragility, her past, all came roaring back. Inside her Los Angeles home, the silence was heavy. Those who knew her said she withdrew from public life, struggling to understand how the love she once called transformative had disintegrated into chaos. She tried to continue working, showing up at events with the same poise she'd mastered over decades in Hollywood. But behind the calm smile was exhaustion. Her closest friends spoke of sleepless nights, tears, and the weight of having to stay composed when the world was dissecting every detail of her pain. In early 2012, Demi was hospitalized after an incident involving exhaustion and substance-related complications. The headlines were cruel, speculating about her health and her mind as if pain were entertainment. What few understood was that this was not a fall from grace. It was a breaking point. A moment when a woman who had given everything, her love, her trust, her reputation, realized she had nothing left to protect but herself. Ashton, meanwhile, stayed largely silent. His career was thriving, from taking over 2.5 men to investing in tech startups. But his silence became its own story. Some saw it as maturity, others as avoidance. When he did speak, it was measured, detached, a man trying to move on from a chapter the world refused to close. For Demi, moving on was not so simple. The betrayal forced her to confront not just Ashton's actions, but the insecurities she had buried long before him, about aging, worth, and identity, in an industry that worships youth. In her memoir years later, she would describe feeling unmoored, saying, "I lost myself trying to be what I thought someone else wanted." Those words captured more than heartbreak. They revealed the quiet surrender that happens when love becomes self-erasure. As the divorce moved forward, the woman once known for her strength began the slow work of reclaiming it. The media painted her as fragile, but those who stood close saw something different, a survivor in the making. Each public appearance was a statement. She was still here, still fighting, even when the world wanted her broken. By the end of 2011, their separation was official. There was no grand statement, no dramatic confrontation, just the quiet end of something that had once felt unstoppable. The fairy tale was over, replaced by a truth both raw and universal. Sometimes, love isn't lost all at once. It unravels slowly, thread by thread, until one day there's nothing left to hold. And when Demi finally let go, it wasn't out of anger. It was out of necessity. A decision to survive, even when survival meant walking away from the life she had once believed was her second chance. In the months following her split from Ashton Kutcher, Demi Moore disappeared from the Hollywood spotlight. The woman who once commanded red carpets and box offices stepped into the shadows, choosing silence over spectacle. It wasn't retreat. It was survival. She needed space to understand what had gone wrong, not just in her marriage, but in the parts of herself she had neglected while trying to hold it together. For years, she had been known as one of Hollywood's most resilient women, the first actress to command a $12 million salary, the bold figure who turned G.I. Jane into a statement of power. But beneath that strength had always been a girl still searching for safety. In her memoir Inside Out, Demi later revealed that her need for validation ran deep, shaped by a childhood of instability, a mother lost to addiction, and the constant feeling of never being enough. So when Ashton came along, it felt like redemption. He was young, full of energy, a reminder that love could be playful again. But as the years went on, that dynamic shifted. "I didn't realize how much I was shrinking to make the relationship work," she admitted. There is a specific loneliness that comes after public heartbreak, when every headline becomes a mirror, reflecting your most painful moments. Demi faced that loneliness head-on. Therapy, journaling, and long periods away from the cameras became her quiet rituals of recovery. She surrounded herself with her 3 daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, who had watched their mothers unraveling with both heartbreak and admiration. For the first time, Demi allowed them to see her as human, not the unbreakable movie star, but a woman healing. Ashton, meanwhile, began a new life. Within a few years, he married Mila Kunis, his former That 70s Show co-star. To the public, it seemed like closure. The younger man had moved on, found love, built a family. But for Demi, his happiness was a mirror she had to face without resentment. It forced her to redefine what healing truly meant. In an interview years later, she said, "It's easy to blame someone else for your pain. It's harder to ask why you allowed it." Her reflection wasn't about bitterness, it was about accountability. She looked back at her marriage and recognized the imbalance, how she had tried to fit into a mold that didn't belong to her, how she had ignored her instincts, silenced her needs, and mistaken compromise for love. "I lost sight of myself," she confessed. "And when you lose yourself, it doesn't matter who you're with, you're already alone." Slowly, Demi began rebuilding. Yoga, spirituality, and creative projects filled the space once occupied by chaos. She found power in saying no, in protecting her boundaries, and in speaking honestly about the pressures women face. To stay young, to stay desirable, to stay silent. Her story resonated far beyond celebrity gossip. It became a lesson in self-worth. Women across the world saw their own reflection in hers, the woman who had loved too deeply, forgiven too easily, and finally learned that letting go is sometimes the greatest act of love. In time, Demi's pain transformed into perspective. She didn't deny the hurt, she honored it. Each scar became proof of survival. The world that had once pitied her began to respect her again, not as the glamorous star who lost everything, but as the woman who faced the wreckage and rebuilt herself from the inside out. Her reflection was simple yet profound. Love is not meant to complete you, it's meant to mirror you. And if that mirror ever distorts who you are, it's not love you've found, it's illusion. Redemption didn't come to Demi Moore all at once. It arrived quietly, in small moments that slowly pieced her back together. For years, the world had watched her fall apart under the weight of love lost. Headlines turned cruel, and her own struggle for identity. But when she finally re-emerged, it wasn't the glamorous movie star who returned. It was a woman transformed, softer, wiser, and more at peace with herself than she had ever been. By 2019, Demi had published her memoir Inside Out, a raw, unflinching look at her life, from her turbulent childhood to her marriage with Ashton Kutcher. For the first time, she told her story on her own terms. It was not revenge or scandal she sought, it was understanding. In those pages, she reclaimed her narrative. She admitted her mistakes, owned her pain, and offered grace, both to Ashton and to herself. "I forgive him," she said simply in interviews, her voice calm, grounded. "But more than that, I forgive me." Her words resonated deeply, especially among women who had followed her career since the 1980s. They had seen her evolve from the fierce independence of Ghost and Indecent Proposal to the vulnerability of her later years. And now they saw something even rarer: acceptance. Demi was no longer trying to prove she could love, be loved, or stay young forever. She was learning that peace is not found in another person, it's found in truth. After the divorce, Demi rebuilt her relationship with her daughters, a bond that had been strained during her marriage to Ashton. They began spending time together again, publicly celebrating her sobriety and recovery. She made her return to film, appearing in projects like Corporate Animals and Brave New World, embracing roles that reflected humor and resilience. She also became an advocate for body acceptance and mental health, openly discussing the pressures of Hollywood beauty standards. In 2020, Demi took part in COVID lockdown with Bruce Willis and their daughters, proof that family, even when unconventional, could still be united in love. It reminded fans of the woman she had always been: loyal, compassionate, and deeply human. In numerous interviews, Demi spoke of reclaiming the parts of myself I gave away, a statement that captured her new philosophy. She learned to live quietly, privately, without needing public validation. She found joy in solitude and meaning in the simple acts of self-care that once felt foreign: writing, walking, meditating, being still. As for Ashton Kutcher, he acknowledged the mistakes of his past, saying in an interview that divorce had forced him to grow up. He later became a devoted husband and father, living a life far removed from Hollywood excess. There was no bitterness between them, only distance, the kind that time softens but never entirely erases. When Demi attended the launch of her memoir, many noticed the change in her. She wasn't hiding behind perfection anymore. She was standing in authenticity. No designer gown, no polished illusion, just presence. Her story had become one of triumph, not through fame or fortune, but through honesty. What emerged from her journey was a woman who had stopped chasing the impossible. She no longer needed to fit a mold, prove her worth, or live up to a title. In losing everything she thought defined her, she found herself, and that was enough. In the end, Demi Moore's redemption wasn't about reclaiming the love that broke her. It was about understanding why she allowed it to define her for so long. She discovered that forgiveness is not weakness, it is release. She could finally look back at Ashton Kutcher, not with regret but with gratitude, because through that heartbreak, she rediscovered her strength, her independence, and the quiet beauty of being whole. Years after the divorce, Demi Moore no longer needed to speak through tabloids or tears. Her silence had become her strength. When she finally broke it, she did so not to wound, but to heal. To remind the world that even the brightest stars can lose their light and still find their way home. The story wasn't about Ashton Kutcher anymore. It was about a woman who learned that love without respect is just illusion, and that peace often comes when the noise fades. Her daughter once said that watching her mother rise again taught her what true courage looks like. Not in staying silent, but in speaking truth when it hurts the most. That is the legacy Demi leaves behind: the power to face pain with honesty, to love without losing yourself, and to let go with grace. For more emotional stories, check out this video.